we are continuing on with our Venn diagram lesson. Now we are going to look at when we've got 3 circles in the mix. So 3 different sets of data. In this case, all 3 are overlapping. Sometimes just 2 of them are overlapping. We have a point where all 3 are touching. And then, of course, we have the outer rectangle box. So let's jump in and practice our shading. On the first one, we are just going to shade circle A. Nice and simple. On the next one, we are shading not C. So that is everything except circle C. So I'm going to go around it and shade in everything else in my box. Okay, the next one is the intersection of A and B, and I have that here. D is the intersection of A and C. That happens here. E is the intersection of A, B, and C. So where all 3 overlap here in the middle, that tiny triangle looking piece. F is the union of A and C, so that means all of A and all of C. Okay, next, I've got the intersection of A, B, and C, but not that. So I'm going to shade everything else except that little triangle piece in the middle. Okay. Now, intersection of A and B. Again, that is here. And where does that intersect C? Well, that little piece in the middle again. Okay, lastly, the intersection of B and C, that's here. And then union, circle A. Now, once again, this is not just an art class. We need to give some context to these Venn diagrams. And here we have a sample of 100 students enrolling in a university. Your total will not always be 100. It just happens to be so for these 2 examples. Anyway, we've got a questionnaire indicating 45 of them studied English, 40 studied French, 35 did German, 20 did English and French, 23 studied English and German, 19 studied French and German, and 12 studied all 3. That's a whole lot, but let's just break it down into our Venn diagram first. We've got S representing our total students, E is going to represent English, F is going to represent French, G is going to represent German. Similar to when we had our 2 circles, I'm going to start from the very middle where all 3 are overlapping, and that is for the 12 students who studied all 3. Okay? Now I'm just going to work my way backwards. 19 studied French and German. Now, that includes the 12 who studied all 3. So together, these 2 numbers that represent where French and German overlap need to add to 19. So that means 7 of them studied just French and German. Okay. Continuing on again, 23 studied English and German. Now again, that 23 is going to be from the 12 and this number together. So that leaves me with 11 who did English and German. Still working backwards, 20 studied French and English. Again, that's including this 12, so that would leave 8 here. 35 total studied German. So all 4 of those numbers need to add to 35. So that leaves us with 5 here who only did German. 40 total studied French. So these 4 need to add to 40. That makes this 13. And then 45 of them studied English. So all 4 of these numbers need to add to 45. That leaves me with 14. And I had 100 students. If I add up all of the numbers inside of these circles, that only gives me 70. So that means I've got 30 people out here that don't fall into one of these categories. Once my Venn diagram is finished, we can start answering our probability questions about picking a student. And so first we need to shade. I've got the union of all of these things. So E, F, and not G. So I'm going to start with E and F. Here is all of E. Here is all of F. And then not G means everything else around it. So I need to also include my outside rectangle, which looks kind of more like a square here. So to refresh the numbers I'm going to use, I've got the 30 on the outside. This is 14, this is 11, this is 12, this is 13, this is 8, and this is 7. So to get my numeric answer here, I need to add up all of these numbers, and that is going to give me 95 out of 100. This does reduce to 19 over 20. So there's my numeric answer, but what does this mean in words? Well, again, we've got 19 out of every 20 students fall into this category. Now, what is this category? That means that either they didn't study German at all, or if they did, they studied it with another language. Let's look at our next problem. Again, this one is a union again, so not E, union F and G. So I'm going to shade in F, and that one's running out, so I'm going to switch markers. F, G, and then not E is going to include my outer box. Okay, so my numbers that I have here now, 30, 8, 13, 7, 12, 11, and 5. Those all add up to 86 out of 100 total. That reduces to 43 over 50. So there's my numeric answer. Now, what does this mean in words? Well, I've got 43 out of every 50 students that fall into this category. And what exactly is that category? Well, they either didn't study English at all, or they studied English with another language. This is very similar to number 1, but for English instead of German. So they either didn't study English at all, or they studied it with another language. Okay, final one, not the intersection of G and F. So my intersection of G and F is here, so I'm going to shade in everything else. And I'm switching colors because my green is quitting on me. So everything else except the intersection of German and French. And even this pink is saying it wants to quit on me too. This one's not much better, but we're going to go with it. Okay, there we go. So all of my numbers here, I've got 30, 14, 8, 13, 11, and 5. What do all of those add up to? 81 over 100. That fraction will not simplify. So what does this mean? 81 out of my 100 students total fall into this category. And now this is everybody who did not study German and French. Okay, and that wraps up part 2 of our notes on Venn diagrams.